Hi, welcome. I'm Elena, and today I have a little book review and get ready with me for you. I sort of like blend into the background, but whatever, okay. I figured since I was getting ready anyway today that I would talk you through my thoughts and feelings about Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries and Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. This is kind of a review, but more just a chat while I'm getting ready. I didn't mention the products as I was applying them, but I will list them in the description box if you care what's on my face. And mainly, I was just so excited to talk about these books. I loved them. So I'll start with some spoiler-free thoughts in case you haven't read these yet, and we will timestamp when the spoilers start so that you don't mess anything up for yourself if you haven't read one or both of these books. If you like this type of content, books with some beauty and lifestyle stuff thrown in, then please like the video and subscribe to our channel. We're a small channel, so we really appreciate your support. And with that, let's get into it. So Emily Wilde is a Cambridge professor who studies dryadology, which is the study of fairies, of course. And in the first book, she is writing an encyclopedia of all fairy species. So she travels to this remote, wintry climate village to study the fairies they have there. Emily is like your classic curmudgeonly professor type. She loves books and learning and her cozy study at Cambridge. And she doesn't really care about how she looks. She kind of thinks that making things look nice is a waste of time. Emily and I do not have that in common, but I love her anyway. She's very capable and smart, but she's also introverted to the point of being pretty much socially inept. So she goes to this village pronounced Hrafnsvik. It's an Icelandic town. She goes to this remote village and she quickly realizes that something strange is going on with the locals and their fairies. But she's so socially awkward that by the time she realizes something is amiss, she has offended everyone in the village and no one will talk to her and tell her their folk tales and stuff, which is what she came there to do. And the book is written memoir style, which I really enjoy. All the action is told as a recounting, with Emily adding in her thoughts and feelings at the time as she reflects back on what has happened. I really like that because it gives you a lot of insight into how she felt. And also the academic language of the memoir format is so appealing to me. It's just enjoyable to read. There's even little footnotes to give you details about references to dryadology of the time. So there will be little folk tales in the footnotes, which I love. Anyway, she's really kind of put her foot in it when all of a sudden her colleague, Wendell Bamblebee, what a name, shows up out of the blue. And Wendell is Emily's opposite in a lot of ways. He's outgoing and charming and beautiful and cares a lot about aesthetics and super gregarious. Everybody loves him, you get it. This leads to some really fun dramatic irony because as the reader, you realize that Emily considers Wendell to be a rival. And when he shows up, she's like, oh my God, he's here. She doesn't talk like that. She wouldn't say, oh my God. She thinks he's here to try to steal some credit for her research. But it's pretty clear to the reader that Wendell does not feel that way about her. He likes her and genuinely wants to help with her research and thinks they're friends. So that's kind of fun. Fairy shenanigans ensue from there. And these are not your ACOTAR fairies, which are basically elves in my opinion. Not that there's anything wrong with the ACOTAR fairies. I love me some Reese, but these are the folktale fairies. The kind that give you a riddle to solve and trick you and lure you into fairyland to live there forever and then swap out your baby with a changeling at night, that kind of fairy. There are so many different species of fairies referenced in this book, and I really like how imaginative Heather Fawcett was with all her different fairy types. You definitely get a sense that the fairies are dangerous, but also fascinating, which is definitely how Emily sees them. And I can't say much about the second book yet because I don't want to spoil everything from the first book, but just know that instead of writing an encyclopedia of fairy species, now Emily is working on a map of all the fairy doors. And side note, why was there not a map included in the book? Like, it's literally called Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, and there's no map. And fantasy readers love a good map. All right, now I'm gonna discuss some things that are spoilers for book 1. So if you haven't read it yet, continue at your own risk. I mainly want to talk about the romance. And this is not like a romantasy book, you know, there's no spice. It's not super romance heavy, but there is romance. In book 1, Wendell confesses his love for Emily kind of out of nowhere. I mean, I knew it was coming because it's hinted on the back of the book, but I didn't feel convinced. He even launches this dramatic rescue and proposes to her, but by the end of the book, I still felt like if I were Emily, I'd be that girl asking my man like, but do you even like me 100 times a day? Because I don't really get why he likes her. I mean, I'm glad he does. I like her, but I don't know. It just felt surprising. Number 1, they don't have much in common other than Emily being obsessed with fairies and Wendell being a fairy. But also, she's really messy. She's a little bit of a slob. She just feels like she doesn't have time and she's too focused on her studies to keep things like clean and nice around her. And Wendell is the opposite. He's like obsessed with things being really clean and aesthetic and beautiful. He's really obsessed with his appearance, with like appearances in general. And Emily is like so busy with her studies that she doesn't even have time to brush her hair. Like, I'm not judging Emily, I'm just saying it seems like those two personalities aren't the most compatible. Also, and this really threw me off, in book 1, Wendell like sleeps with a bunch of random people. He's kind of a fairy fuckboy. He takes multiple lovers, and Emily does not seem bothered by this, but I'm kind of bothered. Like, we're just supposed to trust that he's actually into her, and also he's a fairy, which are known for being like manipulative and dangerous and not compassionate towards humans, but she's just so different that he fell in love with her. I mean, I'm making it sound like I hated this romance, and I actually quite love it. I love them together. I want them to be together. I adore them both separately, and their chemistry is so fun. It just, I don't know, it's a little confusing. I mean, I'm glad it happened, but I don't really get why it happened, you know? In terms of plot, I love the plot. I really enjoyed like the winter ice fairy king scenario at the end, but this is definitely not like a romanticizing winter type book. Kind of makes you hate winter. So I wouldn't read this if you're in the depths of seasonal affective disorder or whatever. I loved how it took time and teamwork and some spur of the moment ingenuity to get Emily out of that situation with the winter fairy king. And I love that the townspeople got involved. All of the townspeople were adorable. The side characters are just great. And I guess we did get some good character development with Emily and Wendell as they become more compassionate towards the locals. And another thing I really enjoy about Heather Fawcett's writing, and I think is very unique, is the gender equality she's got going on. These books are meant to be a reimagined history scenario. You know, like we're on Earth, it's our world, but there's fairies there. But in real life, in this time period, I don't think that female professors were a thing at Cambridge. And I definitely don't think that Emily could just travel solo or with a single man without people being scandalized, you know? She has female characters who are like lumberjacks and doing other types of traditionally male jobs. And apparently there are about equal number female colleagues to male at Cambridge, which, I don't know, I felt like all this was so refreshing. I think, you know, in Heather Fawcett's world, if there can be fairies and enchanted buttons and dogs that transform into a Grimm, there can be gender equality. And Emily is still, sorry, powder. But Emily is still kind of a feminist icon, you know, except for the fact that she literally like went to a remote winter climate and she doesn't even know how to chop wood or start a fire for herself. I was like, girl, you didn't think you should take a survival skills class before you climbed up here? Because you're gonna die. Now, by contrast, the Lady Trent series by Marie Brennan, it's really similar to this series and they get compared a lot. In that series, Lady Trent studies dragons instead of fairies, but these two series are very, very similar. However, The misogyny is a huge, huge part of that story. And you know what? I like that too. It is cool to see a character turning gender stereotypes on their head, you know? But it's also really refreshing not to have that element in Emily Wilde's world. And I also will say the stakes are pretty high in these books, but it still comes off very cozy. I think part of that is because of the memoir format. Because when you're reading a memoir, you know the character survived to write it in their memoir. Things can't have turned out that badly. I also appreciated in the second book how Emily was not a cat person. I mean, I'm a cat person, obviously, but I think it was kind of cool that she wasn't a cat person because normally her type of character, like the mousy professor type, they're usually cat people. And I just thought it was fun that she's a dog person. I did enjoy that there was a magical cat. All right, that's my makeup and my review finished. If you read these books, let me know what you thought in the comments and be on the lookout for when I add my review of this book to my reading journal, because imagine the gorgeous spread I can do for Emily Wilde. Please like, subscribe, check out our other stuff. And I'm gonna go finish redecorating my library. So until our next video, see you soon.